up, and it's gone. I deleted it, got it out of there.
You're too efficient, Ken.
I know. I don't like things that I bump something and it takes off again.
And there's intimacy on the radio, and there's naturalness on the radio that can never be replicated on TV. The marvelous resurgence of radio as a political force in this country.
News-related radio programming is evolving.
There's a huge hole in our dialogue that can be filled by the synthesis of traditional radio and the freedom that comes from a live podcast. You're about to experience Cowboy State Politics live. Here we go. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to another outstanding installment from very high above all the insipid and puerile forms of Wyoming mainstream media. This is Cowboy State Politics. I, of course, am your illustrious host, David Iverson, firmly ensconced behind the silver Cowboy State Politics microphone and broadcasting to you from the base of the Bighorns at the Cowboy State Politics Studio in Sheridan, Wyoming. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to the program. Happy Friday. Well, it's been quite a week on the program. We've had several different guests, and we're not quite done yet. On this morning's program, we're going to talk to my pal, Rebecca Bextel. It seems like a few things are progressing in her battle with government. That's a little bit broad. What I mean is in government's refusal to follow the law when it comes to public records. So we're going to talk to her about that at the top of the second hour. And then at 9:30, we'll have former Representative Mark Jennings on the program. We're going to talk about his run. And on, Ken, it's the nature of legislation that a whole bunch, one always comes back. I mean, you never really do away with a bill. It seems like they just keep coming back. They're like zombie bills.
Yeah, we'll talk about one today. There's another one coming back, too.
Oh, another one, huh?
Yeah, you're going to be shocked.
Oh, I'm sure.
It has to do with Medicaid expansion.
No! Who's bringing that one?
I think that's partially the goal of the task force that I've been assigned to, because that was their solution. They say healthcare is too expensive, so what's the solution?
Medicaid expansion.
Medicaid expansion.
So would that be try number 18 or would it be 19?
Oh, I don't know. I can't count that far.
Well, okay, fair enough. But we're going to have to talk about that one too. How can you have a Medicaid expansion bill on a task force that you sit on and you not kill the darn thing?
I'm one person out of 6.
Yeah, but you're persuasive. Sometimes.
I'm good, but...
All right. Well, and, of course,
I pushed the button.
You have it?
It's
there we
Open Line Friday.
That's right, my friends. Open Line Friday on Cowboy State Politics Live.
This is the day where we talk about whatever you want to talk about. And so, if you've had something on your mind for an entire week that you've been dying to let out, the phone number here in the studio is 307-374-8989. 307-374-8989. Whatever it is, you give me a call and we'll talk about it. You see, you don't realize the enormous pressure that I put my producer under every Friday.
We need to have a Ken Drives the Bus Tuesday.
Well, Ken always drives the bus Tuesday. But anyway, if there is something you want to talk about, go ahead and give me a call. 307-374-8989, and I'll get Ken to put the number up on the screen. And so whatever it is,
Oh, now I'm not going to do it.
Yeah,
I was going to do it real slick-like, and now it looks like I'm just your puppet.
Well, I mean, you are the producer.
Do you have
right?
an apartment in Washington, D.C.?
Yes, right. I am the D.C. overlord that's been directing everybody in the Freedom Caucus. Oh, yeah. And that's the other story that we're going to talk about this morning. So it turns out the common sense Republicans are not so common sense, and they're not so Republican after all, and they're not very good lawyers, as it turns out. So we'll have a conversation about those
kind of
folks
the
too.
trifecta there.
I know. Well, I mean, hey, when you're a crappy lawyer, I mean, business can't be booming, and so you got to pick up the slack somewhere else. And they're trying, but their one failure is to assume that we are not able to dig into who these people are.
Yeah, you said when you're a crappy. Oh, I'm going to get myself in trouble here a bit.
Yeah,
I think most of them are probably they're probably employed as prosecuting attorneys. So people say, so how come you're trying to get them a raise? And I say, in part, you get what you pay for.
No.
But we should talk about that one sometime, too, but not right now.
Well, no. We've got way too much on the schedule. And we're going to begin with Wyoming's version of George Soros, Liz Storr. The reason why I call her Wyoming's version of George Soros is if there is a left-wing group that has a fantastic sounding name to it, like, I don't know, Muley Fanatics or Trout Unlimited, chances are Liz Storr is behind it, and none of them do what's it alleged that they do? Yeah, that's a little bit more correct, but it's always some nefarious purpose, and all of them are entirely left-leaning. And if you look at any of the propaganda, and none of them stay constrained to wildlife or recreation. So
I'm going to push back just a little bit.
Okay, well, you can in just a second.
Yeah.
But all of them, whether it's Muley Fanatics or whether it's Trout Unlimited or the Audubon Society or the Theodore Roosevelt Institute or the Sonoran Institute, that's where a lot of the money flows through. Anyway, they all eventually engage in very left-wing propaganda. And, it's there's a lot of documentation. It just takes a little bit of digging into it. But she has an op-ed in the Cow Pie, and now she says that the bill that she voted for numerous times is now unconstitutional. So anyway, go ahead and do your little pushback thing, and I'll shoot it down.
You painted a pretty broad brush there.
Like a clay pigeon that's about to come down.
Yeah, and I do know that they do a little bit of honest work at trying to, and I use that word honest reservedly, in trying to take care of a situation, for example, with cutthroat trout. And it's not like none of the money that they collect ever goes to help an animal or to help their cause.
No.
Because that's kind of how I was taking it.
That wasn't my argument.
Okay.
So, and here's the way that it works. They have individual chapters like Trout Unlimited. There's one here in Sheridan. And those guys are the ones that actually, stock streams and help out fishermen and those sorts of things. But what is done in the background is all of those contact details, all of it, all the people that sign up for it end up in the big, huge database of voter information that's used by Liz Storr's other groups. And so unbeknownst to the people at the local level, really what's happening in the background is Liz Storr's political operation.
There's always an ulterior motive behind
Always.
it. And I just wanted to make sure that we didn't disparage some of the people who are involved with some of the programs that she do that actually do go what they say they do.
Well,
whether or not that needs to be done might be debatable.
Okay, and we got to be precise here.
Yeah.
Because when you start an organization like Trout Unlimited or
She didn't start the Autobahn. She gives a lot of money to it. Or Muley Fanatics. Okay, like I said, there are the folks at the ground. They actually do some good work, but the purpose of the organization is not to do that. The main purpose is a political operation.
Okay, we got that out there, so that's good.
And so a good example of that is High Country News. So invariably, you'll get an issue of it in your mailbox, and it's supposed to be like an outdoor magazine, right? Articles about hunting and fishing and, hiking and all of that. But almost always there's a whole giant section of it that's all left-wing politics. And so you sign up for this subscription, maybe it is a prescription, but you sign up for the subscription thinking that you're getting an outdoor magazine, and really half of it ends up being political propaganda. One of my favorite magazine quotations about Mark Gordon was in High Country News. And and I always misquote it, but it's something like when Mark Gordon was not fighting coal bed methane development in the Powder River Basin, he spends his time being a rancher in Johnson County, which he is definitely. I mean, he owns a couple ranches, but he never really grew up there. Anyway, so let's go to Liz Storr. From the Cow Pie, an op-ed entitled, "The 4% property tax cap breaks Wyoming's promise of equal taxation." And let me read you the opening paragraphs, and then I'll show you where Liz Storr is a big, giant hypocrite, as if we have any question about that. Quote, "The debate in Wyoming over the 4% cap on residential property valuation increases is often framed as a question of tax relief. In truth, it is a question of fairness and whether we are willing to tolerate a new scheme that quietly advantages wealthier property owners at the expense of working families. The State Board of Equalization deserves credit for confronting that reality head on. The Wyoming Constitution is unambiguous. Article 15, Section 11 says states that property taxation must be equal and uniform based on full value. That standard exists so taxpayers in similar circumstances are treated equally, and so no one receives a preferential treatment because of timing, circumstance, or political expedience. The 4% cap violates that principle." Now, we can talk about the bill, and we will here in just a second, but Ken, I have a question for you. Is it not your responsibility, before you vote for a particular piece of legislation, no matter what it is, Isn't it your responsibility to do your due diligence on it, to find out if you should vote for it?
If by due diligence you mean check the text messages from the DC overlord, certainly.
Well, yes, that's exactly what I was referring to. But here's why. There was a post from, and we'll get back to Liz's story in just a second. A couple days ago, Ogden Driscoll had a post about the recalibration bill. And it was how terrible it is. And then somebody posted, "Hey, Augie, you voted for this thing." And his response was, "Well, yes, I did vote for it, but I later found out that it was a bad bill." Now, wait a minute. Why didn't you find out that it was a bad bill before you voted for it? And it's not a bad bill. My point being is that you're an elected representative of the people. So you should know what you're voting on before you vote on it. Right, Ken?
And that's true. And look at that. That didn't work.
No, you put me off the screen.
Well, it did work. So that's a hard one because of all the different things that you face. You can't be up on top of every one of them. And some things, I've been intrigued by bills before, and fortunately had someone like Mark Jennings there to say, "Let me show you something else you may not have seen.
You
or
may have missed
considered."
this.
Yeah. You may have missed this thing, and especially when you're new to the arguments. It's easy to get caught up in the hype about something and not understand all of the arguments. Fortunately, because there is such a thing as the Freedom Caucus, and there are a lot of conservatives that hang together. That's the purpose. Because some of these people, like Mark, who've been there for years, have heard all the arguments.
Yeah, they've heard every bill that could
they've
possibly
been through it,
come
and
up.
they know things you don't know. And so you have an opportunity to bounce this off of there, or maybe you come up with an idea and they say, "Yeah, okay, if you want to do that, but here's going to be the arguments you're going to have to overcome." Because in most cases, we've heard it all before.
Well, yeah. And so and maybe I should describe this. So if you've never visited the legislature, you might have heard the phrase, read the bill. So when a piece of legislation is introduced, the speaker or the president of the Senate, whichever one chamber it's in, they'll say the reading clerk will read the bill. And if you just stop right there, you would assume that the reading clerk sits there and reads through every sentence in the bill. That's not what they do. When the reading clerk reads the bill, they read the title and then the description of it. That's it. And then, yeah, it is true.
No,
There's not really a description.
Well, I mean, it's
They
the
read
little catch title, right?
They read the catch title, yeah.
Yeah. And now in Wyoming, we do have a single subject rule. And so the bill actually has to relate to what's in the title. It's
Yeah.
not always the
Yeah.
case, though.
Or
So-
we call the rules committee and then
Yeah.
we let it go anyway.
Yeah. But anyway, when the reading clerk reads the bill, they don't read the entire bill. So it's not like everybody on the floor sits there and listens to the reading clerk drone on and on and on and read a 40-page bill. That doesn't happen. And so if you aren't doing your own due diligence, on the floor, you may not have any idea what you're voting on. And so, but you're an elected representative of the people, and it's your responsibility to know what it is that you're voting on. I mean, I would consider that in the job description.
It is, and just I don't know if you happen to have the photograph of the budget bill. So everybody votes on the budget bill, but do you have an opportunity, especially in a 20-day budget session when you're also doing a gazillion other things and working things, to actually read every bit of that?
Well, I don't know, Ken. I mean, so while I'm looking for that picture, go ahead and just continue describing what you're talking about.
Well, when you roll out the supplemental budget, and I've shared pictures of that, the supplemental budget often looks like it's, I'm going to change this. Supplemental budget looks like it may be 2-3 inches thick, and that itself would be a challenge. The regular budget occupies 2 complete file drawers.
I'm almost there.
And actually, the Appropriations Committee does go through it, every bit of it. And we hash it, we discuss it. It is a tremendous amount of work. If you're going to do that, you can't necessarily read the other 400 bills in their entirety. Yes, we do understand them. I'm just saying that if anybody had told me the level of reading, the commitment that would have to be done, I'm not sure that
You made a thought
signed
twice
up for
about
that.
this?
But what I'm getting to is, we have people that serve on different committees, and that's actually a duplicate picture. But there are 2
okay.
file drawers there,
Yeah,
and they're
so-
both the same. So every one of those is a different agency, and they all have their budget request in there, and we have to go through it extensively.
How many reams of paper did you say it took?
That's right out 11.
11 reams
Yeah,
of paper for the
just
budget bill.
just to print one paper copy of the budget.
Yeah.
So you know that it's pretty extensive. So people say it's a real, and that's what I'm getting to. It's a real simple idea to say, well, you got to read every bill. You got to read the bill to know what's in it, right?
Well, okay, so yes, it's a huge responsibility, and there's a lot of work that goes into it. But that's why you don't make the big bucks. That's why people elect you, and so that you are voting on. You're voting in your constituents' best interest.
And that's why we can't have a flat-out democracy.
Yes.
Who in their right mind would want to come home from a 8 or 10-hour workday and spend 6 hours reading bills so that you could vote in the morning?
Or more. It's interesting when you show up at Ken's house when the budget comes out. He's got his office, but there'll just be stacks of paper everywhere. And every time I show up, he's always sitting in his chair. But I often envision him, in the middle of the floor, being surrounded by just giant stacks of paper. And
Most of them are available online. Of course, they all are available
Right.
online as well, and we all like to work off of that. But you can only stand so much screen time. Plus, it's a lot easier for me being old school to, use a highlighter and put things into, okay, this is an okay pile. This is a
Right.
kiss my butt pile.
Well, and then there are people like Charlie Scott, Senator Charlie Scott.
Yeah.
He has every bill printed off, and if you see a picture of his desk, he's got this big file thing.
Looks like an auto parts house from the 1970s.
Yeah, and
before computers.
He just flips through all the bills on it. But anyway, my point in all of this is that Liz Storr is now complaining about House Bill 45, which is a bill that she championed on the floor, and she voted for every time that it came up. Go ahead and show the vote, Ken. So this is the vote on House Bill 45, and you can see there's her name voting for it. And so if indeed this bill is unconstitutional, perhaps Representative Storr should have known that before she voted on it.
What bill was that? I'm sorry, I
This
missed
is House
it.
Bill 45, the
Yeah.
4% cap.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so Liz Storr and Barry and Poison Barry Crago are the people that ran this thing to death. It was Poison Barry's bill, but
And see, there's Representative Yin upping his conservative credentials.
yes, that's exactly what happened there. All right, so anyway, now Liz Storr is claiming that the darn thing is unconstitutional, which it's not, and I'll explain that in just a second. She says the 4% cap violates the principles in the Constitution. By artificially limiting how much a property's assessed value can increase each year, the cap creates a system where two homes of identical market value can be taxed very differently based solely on how long that they have been owned. Well, it's not necessarily, even if her argument held water, which it doesn't, but even if it did, let's say that you have exactly the same home in two different parts of town. Okay, one of them is across the tracks, and the other one is in Ken's fantastically exciting neighborhood. Well, those are two different neighborhoods, but the same house is there. And according to the model that we have right now, you would base the value of that property on the neighborhood value. So, comparable houses in comparable neighborhoods get taxed the same. That's our current model. But the houses are not any different. They're the exact same house, but because they're in a different part of town, they're going to be valued differently. Now, I mean, you could make the argument that maybe one neighborhood is more desirable than another one. But that doesn't mean that the actual house itself is of any more value. It means that the location is. It doesn't mean the house. And so when House Bill 45 came up that capped property taxes at a 4% increase every year, it doesn't change what the initial valuation of the house is. It just says that your taxes can't go up any more than 4%. Also, similarly, if that other house in the other part of town across the street is valued differently, it also means that that house can't go up any more than 4%. So it is on a percentage basis, it's not on a dollar value, which is what Liz Storr is arguing. Her argument is based on the actual dollar amount, not on the percentage of it. Because if this house over here is already valued at $200,000 more than the one across the tracks, the percentage, yes, stays the same. But the amount is different. And so, if her argument holds any water, then our current system of property tax or property valuation is already unconstitutional.
Well,
And so there's no reason to have this op-ed in the first place.
yeah, there's a big problem with property tax. There is no fair way to do property taxes. And the old argument about you're taxed on unrealized capital gains is very real. If I'd have, at the time that I bought my house, let's just say for round numbers, $200,000.
Sure.
And
It's not worth that now,
And so
by the way.
now it's locked in, and 4% since 2015, it goes up from that rate. Whereas if I'd have bought it 3 years ago, $600,000.
Yeah.
And then it goes up from there. And it's the same house.
Yep.
So no matter what system, and that's one of the reasons it's taken us so long to come up with some solutions to this, no matter what you bring up, there are issues.
Sure.
There are problems, and there's injustice and all those. So
I think the only fair way to do it, Ken, and I've thought about this a lot, the only fair way to do it is acquisition value, that you are taxed on the amount of money that you paid for your home. because that's its value. If it wasn't its value, you wouldn't have paid that much.
Yeah, I have a similar take on that, which is essentially a sales tax at the time of purchase, and once that tax has been paid, you're done.
Well,
But what about the schools?
yeah, it doesn't make any sense that our property tax structure is completely different than every other type of tax that we have. Look at your license plates. So your license plate is based upon the MSRP of your vehicle, which I don't think that's right either, but that's a system, and let's go with the argument. And that every year or every couple of years, the price of your license plates goes down, presumably based on the depreciation of your vehicle. We all know that when you drive a vehicle off the lot, it loses about a quarter of its value, which I've never quite understood. You know, if you drive the vehicle 50 yards, it doesn't mean that it's worth any less than it was sitting on the lot. But anyway, the amount of tax that you pay goes down based on the value of that car. Now, the argument against that is that property tends to appreciate instead of depreciate. But still, you know, if you want consistency in taxation, it ought not be complicated. I've argued for a really long time that your taxes should be no more complicated than a single sheet of paper. If you can't explain to me what I'm paying on one single side sheet of paper, the property tax system is too complicated. And the truth is, at the Department of Revenue, they've got a whole basement full of mathematicians figuring out how, and I'm not joking, they really do have a whole basement full of mathematicians that are figuring out how much you're going to be charged for your property tax. And so the point here is, not only is Liz Storer a big giant hypocrite, because she is, she voted for the darn thing, but two, her argument really is off the mark. And we shouldn't be surprised, because Liz Storer is a Democrat, and all of their arguments seem to revolve around the word equity. Not equality, equity. We all know that equality means something different, which means, you know, equality of opportunity, which means everybody's kind of on the same playing field. Some people are more talented than others. Some people are talented enough to run this program, while others, well, while they may work for a different outfit, they're not as talented as me. That's just the nature of how things work. But Liz Storer's argument is based entirely in equity, and it's a load of bull crap. We're going to go to a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the not-so-common sense, not-so-Republicans. Back in a minute. The following ad was paid for by Brent Bean for governor.
This is Brent Bean, a Republican for governor. Wyoming families know what matters: law enforcement, emergency services, and supporting strong schools, agriculture, and energy production. But state government keeps growing while priorities fight for resources. That has to change. We don't have a revenue problem. We have a spending and priority problem. Vote for me on August 18th, and I'll put Wyoming priorities first. I'll return taxes to you, the taxpayer, and make Wyoming number one. Paid for by Brent Bean for governor.
Today's program is also brought to you by Morton Buildings. If you're in the market for any type of building for your property, you need to call Marcos and Jesse at Morton Buildings. Their phone number is 307-674-2532. They're the best in metal building construction, and they've been doing it longer than anybody else around. So it doesn't matter if it's a garage or a barn or maybe something bigger, like a roping arena or maybe a giant warehouse for your business. The two guys you need to call first are Marcos and Jesse. Again, their phone number is 307-674-2532, or you can check them out on their website, mortonbuildings.com. Welcome back to the program, Cowboy State Politics Live on Open Line Friday. If you want to be part of the show, the phone number is 307-374-8989. Phone lines are open. Whatever you want to talk about, 307-374-8989. Make sure you stick with us till the top of the hour. We've got Rebecca Bextel at 9 o'clock, and then Representative Mark Jennings, and by the way, there's an interesting law in Wyoming that if you were at any time a representative or a senator, you get to retain that title. So even if you're not in office, your title still is, Representative Ken Pendergraft.
That's the only reason I'm running for the Senate.
I knew it. So you could have the title Senator Pendergraft.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, so he's going to be at 9:30. Don't miss it. We're going to talk energy and his running again for the House of Representatives. So perhaps you've seen this billboard. There we go. Perhaps you've seen this. So this is a billboard that has shown up. There's not a billboard. There's several of them, but they've showed up across the state. And it says, "Stop the Freedom Caucus agenda. Vote August 18th." And what you can't see underneath it, it says, "Paid for by Common Sense Republicans of Wyoming." Well, it kind of begs the question, who are the Common Sense Republicans of Wyoming? Well, it's run by a couple of lawyers out of Casper. And so they've got a couple of videos out, and one of them, and let me just look at my list here, Ken, to see which one I want to play first. But they have a series of videos out, and they're attacking the very, very spooky Freedom Caucus. And so the first video that I'm going to show you is, Ken, you are going to love this one. I imagine I'm going to need to pass the duct tape to you. But the first one is these not so common sense, not so Republican folks talking about sunbucks. Go ahead and play it. And stop it any time you like, Ken. Uh-oh. Not that. Play it.
You said stop at any time I like.
Okay, let it play for a minute. Then stop it when you feel so inclined.
Apparently, one of the common questions the Freedom Caucus is getting in response to our billboards is,
what is so bad about the Freedom Caucus agenda? We put real live money back on people's kitchen tables.
the Freedom Caucus did the exact opposite of that when it came to sunbucks.
Oh, really?
Sunbucks are a summer food
I knew that was going to happen. Go ahead, Ken.
That's funny. Paul Heff's, he's the one that was there with the stash. His point that was who left money on the kitchen table.
Yeah.
Her point is about something that
is fictitious.
It claims to. It's not fictitious. It claims to put money on kitchen tables. Really, what it does is put money into a few people's pockets. We've had that discussion, but it didn't take any money away from anybody to say no, because this was a new program. We chose not to stand up because it's redundant. And so they're trying to make the case that we took money away from people.
Yeah. Okay. So the Sunbucks amendment added to the budget, it didn't feed any kids at all. What it did is set up a bureaucracy, and Ken can go through the numbers for it, but basically it was to pay for an office, and then what was it, $1 million for a piece of software? And I probably got the numbers screwed up, but it was a whole bunch of money for an office, an employee, and a piece of software.
It's basically $3.5 million to set up a one-person office with a continuing $2 million a year, and that none of that money was for any food.
Yeah, none of it paid for food for any kids. So go ahead and keep playing.
Benefit is designed to bridge the gap for families. The Freedom Caucus were people who opposed this legislation. They called it a welfare program in disguise. There are about 35,000 Wyoming kids who will face food insecurity in the summer, When Governor Gordon unveiled his original budget proposal in November, it did include about $1.8 million of state funding for Sunbucks. This same article discusses how this is actually a federal grocery benefit that loads $120 per child onto a debit card that they then have available to them for the entire 3-month summer.
Oh, it's fantastic.
So it's about $1.20 per day to feed a hungry kid.
All right, so her claim is that it's $1.20 a day to feed a kid. Can you feed anybody on $1.20? Can you buy a bag of chips for $1.20? You could probably buy a can of soup for $1, maybe a can of Campbell's tomato soup for $1.20, maybe a little bit less. But their argument is we're feeding kids over the summer, and the total amount of money. And first of all, this is not what the vote in the Wyoming House of Representatives was about. But their argument is we are feeding kids throughout the summer. They can use this debit card all summer long, and it's a whole $1.20 a day.
Should also point out that the entire legislature said no.
Yes, the entire legislature said no. And then when she mentions Governor Gordon's executive order, which he doesn't constitutionally have that authority anyway, but anyway, that's another matter. But his executive order found, and he didn't call it money. He said, we found some data in all of these other agencies. Really what he did is he found a whole bunch of money that we've already way over appropriated, and so he didn't need the bill at all in the beginning. But secondly, you're not feeding kids. Stop lying. Go ahead and continue with the video.
To be fair, we had many state legislators who were fighting tooth and nail to get Sunbucks implemented as requested or even amended, but implemented nevertheless. And they were citing the very common sense understanding that if we can feed a hungry kid for $1.20 a day,
pause,
that we should do that.
You can't feed a kid for $1.20 a day. And so and this is your first piece of evidence that this Emily Madden, I'm going to tell you who she is in just a second. But this is your first piece of evidence that she's not a very good lawyer, because she says if we can feed a kid on $1.20 a day, but it's physically impossible. You can't. And it just underscores the buffoonery that this executive order is. That not only is it only $1.20 a day, which you can't feed a kid on that anyway. Emily Madden, I'm not sure if you have kids or not, but you're completely wrong. But it's not government's place anyway, ever.
Yeah. There's also the one thing that people fail to say: there are already programs out there that are feeding kids all over the state.
Yeah,
they're already there.
And therein lies another problem, that we have duplicative programs everywhere. And this one is completely unnecessary. And the only reason the governor did it is so that he could grab headlines, even though he had to lie to get him to go through. Let's continue.
But the Freedom Caucus did not agree. Listen.
I just wonder when federal programs and expanding them, when should we stop that? Or because at this point, is it the government's responsibility to take care of people from cradle to grave?
That last speaker was Representative
Notice she
Scott
doesn't answer
Smith,
that
who's from
question,
House District 5
why
in
she
Goshen
included it
County,
in the video.
And he is admittedly a Wyoming Freedom Caucus member. Thanks to the Freedom Caucus, that measure failed legislatively, and it's only because Governor Gordon signed it into implementation by way of executive order that the program is up and running this summer.
Okay, so there's her first argument, which is absolutely ridiculous anyway. So let's see here. Let's talk a little bit about Emily Madden for a minute. That's the chick in the video. Now she claims to be a Republican. Now I don't know. I mean, Ken, I know a lot of Republicans, but I don't know very many of them that were pretty happy about Hillary Clinton's possibility of being the president. But Emily Madden was. Show my screen. This one says, throwback to inauguration 2016, when I got a bunch of tickets for the inauguration because we thought Hillary would win. Oh, okay. What about this one? Emily Madden is a Biden and Harris supporter. Isn't that just great? Look at them in their masks. Oh, isn't that just precious? And then there's this one. Masks again. Yeah, I don't know very many Republicans that act like that or that hate Donald Trump. I don't know very many Republicans that do that either. Not reading the whole thing, says, if he still had a choice, but the same kind of sympathy I might feel for him momentarily for a vicious cheap shot linebacker whose long career comes to a sudden end one Sunday afternoon when some rookie flanker shatters both his knees with a savage crackback block. Yeah, that's pretty Republican of her. Or there's another one. Masks are cool. Wear them in all homes that aren't yours. Yeah, fantastic. And here's another one. I wasn't going to share this, but then I remembered it's Donald Trump's last full day in office. Oh, isn't that just precious, taking a shot at everybody that supports him? And then there's this. So back to the billboard, and you notice what I have circled there. That is the Republican Party logo. And it is a trademark owned by the Republican Party, and it is not legal. And this is your second piece of evidence that Emily Madden is not a very good lawyer. This is your second piece of evidence that, man, they don't even follow the law. So that...
Yeah, they're trying to make it look like the Republican Party itself is saying the Freedom Caucus is evil.
That is exactly the problem with this billboard. That it is copyright infringement, it is trademark infringement, and the whole measure of that is if a reasonable person would conclude that billboard was sponsored by the Republican Party, and when you've got the elephant on there, I don't see that you could draw any other conclusion. Now the GOP, let's see here. This was June 24th. Wyoming GOP, concerns raised on billboard use of Republican trademark. And they're talking specifically about this not-so-Republican, not-so-common-sense billboard. Questions have emerged regarding a recently displayed billboard paid for by the so-called common-sense Republicans of Wyoming, a political action committee, which features the nationally recognized Republican elephant logo. The billboard is not authorized by either the Republican National Committee or the Wyoming Republican Party. The Republican Party's elephant symbol is a protected trademark associated with the RNC. Use of this logo is subject to licensing agreements and authorization by the trademark holder. Legal observers note that under the Lanham Act, unauthorized use of a protected trademark in a way that may cause confusion or imply an endorsement can raise potential trademark infringement concerns. Such issues may arise when a symbol strongly associated with the official political party is used outside the organization. That is exactly what the Republican Party is talking about. So not only are the not so common sense Republican, they're not so common sense, they're not really Republicans either. Let's go to the second video that we've got from Emily Madden. Spooky Freedom Caucus, I think it's called.
Hi, I'm Emily Madden. I am one of the founding members of the Common Sense Republicans for Wyoming PAC.
Okay,
you may have seen some of our billboards.
For just a second. There is no way that I would let a video out of this studio that jumped like that. Just irritates the crap out of me.
Live show, maybe.
Yeah, well, okay. So when there's pauses in the live program, and I might cut out an ad here or there, but you're not going to see me going through it and all the blips and hips and skips in the audio. Anyway, super irritating.
It's like this across the state. In fact, it's garnered so much attention that yesterday the Wyoming Freedom Caucus posted a response video to the billboards featuring Representative Paul Heff. So we decided to make this video in direct response to the positions that they take in their video. Yesterday, it was suggested that we, the Common Sense Republicans for Wyoming, are people who are working and lurking in the shadows.
Don't let the folks that are working in the shadows chipping away at the things that matter to you most.
Okay,
that
pause.
cannot be further from the truth.
All right, well, all right. So she's going to go on and explain who they are. But here's what Paul Heft was referring to. The billboard says, paid for by Common Sense Republicans of Wyoming. What the left does is they will create a group and they'll put a nice sounding name on it. And the name always leads you to believe that the group is something that they're not. For example, There was a George Soros funded group that was called, I think it was called Wyoming Friends of Coal. Okay, if you just hear that name, you think, well, that's a fantastic organization. They are friendly with coal. When in reality, they were the people that were advocating against Wyoming coal. Same thing here. Common sense Republicans of Wyoming. First, they're obviously not Republicans. I just proved that to you. At least Emily Madden is not. But second, they make a lot of really dubious claims in this video. Let's continue.
Here is a screenshot of our website, commonsensewyo.com. I encourage you all to go visit it.
Yeah.
If you click on our mission, you can read all about why it is that Scott Ortiz and I started this PAC. And you can also see a photo of us because we want people to know who we are and what we stand for and why it is that we got involved in the first.
Did Paul Heft hide who he was?
Clearly, he tried to hide his mustache.
Did I hide who I was when I wrote the op-ed about Sunbucks explaining what went on? You know, this idea that we are the ones lurking in the shadows.
Yes, that's the implication.
That's why I'm doing this right now without putting the camera on me, because I'm just this mysterious voice.
You are. You all hide who you are, which that's okay. That point right there deserves a little explanation. Why is it that there's no official announcement of who exactly is in the Freedom Caucus and who isn't? Because it's not their job, right? It's the individual legislator's job to say if they're part of a group or not. Why should the Freedom Caucus itself publish that list? And they don't. They've been very open about that.
Well, and we do have a website with the pictures and bios on it of people that have chosen to put it on there.
Yeah, but the implication is you guys are a bunch of shadowy figures. I don't understand how you could possibly be shadowy figures as much news coverage as you get. I mean, it's actually kind of amazing. All right, continue with the Democrat, Emily Madden.
First place. Now, let's talk about who the Freedom Caucus is. Let's hear first from Representative Heft.
We're the grassroots. We're the people that were elected, and we did the things that our people in our own district asked us to do. We don't have a lot of big money.
Now, this is a screenshot taken from a video posted by Wyoming Grit, who does fabulous work, and you should all check out their content. But they show in this video that the State Freedom Caucus Network...
If you go to the Wyoming Grit website, it doesn't say who those people are. In fact, I've looked into them. And by the way, if you have any information about who these Wyoming Grit people are, please reach out to me because I would love to know. I have a couple of ideas. When you're involved in politics in Wyoming, it's generally a pretty small group of people. And so, I mean, it's probably the usual suspects. But the point being is that Emily Madden is talking about how shadowy the Freedom Caucus is. And her evidence is from a group that nobody knows, except, of course, the person that runs it. Nobody really knows who runs it. I mean, the hypocrisy here knows no bounds, Ken. Continue.
Supports the Wyoming Freedom Caucus. If you go to the State Freedom Caucus Network webpage, you'll be able to read the how, which is that the State Freedom Caucus Network will establish the Freedom Caucuses and provide the high-level staff, strategy, and community that conservatives need to take ground across the country. The high-level staff that they provide includes a state director, which in Wyoming is Jessie Rubino, and this is her page, her picture on the State Freedom Caucus Network page.
Okay, stop.
If you expand Jessie's comment in response to me on Wade Finch's...
Stop for a minute. All right, it's the very, very spooky Jessie Rubino. I mean, I imagine her in her basement with her fingers doing something like this as she's plotting the demise of every redcoat.
There's a big cauldron down there.
There is with a giant spoon. And she's stirring the cauldron. All right, so Jessie Rubino is the one employee of the...
She's pretty intimidating. She's pretty scary.
Yeah, she's terrifying. What is she, 4'5"? I don't know. She's probably a little bit taller than that, but little short. But she is the only employee of the Wyoming Freedom Caucus, and nobody has tried to hide that. In fact, if you go to the Capitol anytime that they're in session, you can find Jessie Rubino in there.
But you won't find her on the House floor.
No, you won't find her.
Or in somebody's office.
You won't find her in Clark Stith's office, unlike Rebecca Fitzgerald or Joanne True. You won't find them there. No. That's only leftists that do that. All right, continue.
Facebook post, you'll see this highlighted part that addresses the money and what she says is an absurd claim that the Freedom Caucus manages and funds local campaigns.
It is.
She then
It is
tells
an
me
absurd-
that if
all right,
readers
stop.
would take just 10 minutes.
Okay, so does the spooky Freedom Caucus fund local campaigns?
I have never seen a dime from the Freedom Caucus.
What? No
Now, they have-
$30,000?
They don't give money to individual candidates. They will run public information, propaganda on behalf of their people.
Sure.
Who doesn't do that?
Even the common sense so-called Republicans do that. All right, continue.
To look through the campaign finance records that are publicly available, we would see that the Wyoming Freedom Caucus members come from small dollar donor Wyomingites.
so pause.
So I decided to take just
Okay, so go back to the video. So notice right down, probably 3/4 of the way down, it says if readers take 10 minutes to look through these
see
records,
at her word,
they'll find
and
that,
I spent
all right,
10
pause.
minutes.
I'm trying.
Okay, let's leave it right there for a second. Okay, if readers take 10 minutes to look through these records, they'll find that over 95% of the donations to the Wyoming Freedom Caucus and its members come from small dollar donor Wyomingites. 95% of the donations. So if you go ahead and hit play, she's going to try to disprove this, but fails miserably.
Going through those records. Let's take a look. Add up all of these 25 individual campaign contributions for 2024. It's a little over $4,000.
That's Paul Heft. $4,000.
But what that screenshot does not show us, and what the Freedom Caucus neglects to tell us, is that those individual campaign contributions are not the only source of financial contributions that they get to support their campaigns and their ultimate elections to these legislative seats. This is the home webpage of the Wyoming Freedom PAC, which, as you can see, has the same flame logo
It
in the
has
middle
the
of the
same
buffalo that the
logo.
Wyoming Freedom Caucus
Oh,
does.
no.
Make no mistake, the Wyoming Freedom PAC is designed exclusively to raise money for the Wyoming Freedom Caucus and their candidates. They show up in much bigger and other ways.
You
that
know,
I'll show
we
you
need
here
some
in a
spooky
second.
music.
If we take a look at the Wyoming Freedom PAC's filings that are public record, we can see their primary report here, filed for 2024. And page 2 of this report shows 3 different numbers that I think are important. The yellow highlight shows that the PAC received $168,392 in contributions for 2024. And in total, the PAC spent $179,875.78 in 2024. But we can see that they spent about $40,000 in digital advertising, almost $60,000 in printing, and $31,000 in
They reported
postage.
their expenditures. Hit pause. So that amount of money, and it looks like a big number, $120,000. That is a lot of money. But in politics, not really all that much at all. Ken, how much does it take for you to send one postcard to your district?
Well, anywhere from, say, $1,500 to $4,000. But I was thinking more of what has been spent against me.
Well, I'm getting
They've
there.
spent that in one, yeah.
Okay, so one postcard to one legislative district, depending on what it is, between $1,200 and $4,000. Now, just look at what you've received in your mailbox already, and we're not even halfway through the election yet. I've got a stack of mailers. In fact, I have a stack right here. So if it's about $4,000 per mailer in one legislative district, and in the Senate there are 31 districts. So if there was one mailer sent to every district, 31 times 4, so let's see here, that's 62, that's $124,000. So really, that amount of money, while it seems to be pretty big, is not that much when you add it all up and you're sending out information. Similarly, if it's a statewide mailer, you're talking a tremendous amount of cash. And so while you and I look at that $126,000 as a lot of money, in a campaign, that's nothing. You're probably on the losing end. We're going to continue with the video.
In the response video from the Freedom Caucus, Paul Heft asked a fair and valid question.
What is so bad about the Freedom Caucus agenda?
We're going to talk about the Freedom Caucus agenda next.
Yeah, I bet you will. I want to talk about your agenda, Emily Madden. I mean, we already know that you're not really a Republican. So what exactly is it are the common sense Republicans advocating for? What exactly is your platform? Is it that you don't want election integrity, or that you don't want lower taxes, or that you don't want Wyoming to spend conservatively, or that you don't want a transparent and responsive government? Do you not want any of those things? What about guns? Do you not like guns either? See, the point is, my friends, is not only are the common sense Republicans not common sense, they are not Republicans. Anybody who's posting stuff like this is definitely not in line with Wyoming citizens. I don't know very many Republicans that would post this. Go ahead and show it again, Ken. That would post that on their public Facebook page. Now, since then, Emily Madden has her Facebook page all locked down. And I wouldn't know why. Maybe it's because she's a Kamala Harris, Joe Biden supporter. Point being, my friends, is make sure you look into who these people are, because generally speaking, they're probably all lying to you.
Yeah, look into it if you can.
Yeah, if you can, right.
As a state legislator, you can go to wildleg.gov, and you can see my phone number. You can see my home address. It's all out there.
Yep.
Facebook, there's probably way too much on there, but at a certain point, put your cards on the table.
Well, exactly right. And don't try to convince Wyoming citizens that you are something that you're not. I mean, because the truth is, and you're quoting people like Wyoming Grit, who.
So, yeah, look at that billboard that was up there. Those were all over the state.
Yeah, they still are.
You know how much they'll be coming down soon, I'll bet. Do you know how much that cost for that campaign?
Well, I can tell you how much a billboard costs in one city for 1 month. That was, to advertise our debate on the 16th of July. The Open Range Record paid about $1,300 for one billboard for 1 month. And that may have been just for 2 weeks. We can ask Rebecca when she gets on the show. But point being is that the common sense Republicans, one, are not Republican, and two, they're not who they say they are.
And they don't have common sense.
No, they don't.
Who in their right mind would try to set up Sunbucks the way they proposed it?
Wow. All right, let's take another break. And when we come back, we're going to be joined with my pal, Rebecca Bextel. We're going to talk about the Open Records Act. Back in a minute.
The calendar says that it's summer, and you believe it. Well, that's just so cute. But you obviously haven't lived here very long, have you? And you probably think that the weather is just going to continue to warm up. You don't have to worry about snow or ice or 30-degree temperatures anymore. In case you've forgotten, this is Wyoming, my friend, and that sort of thinking doesn't work here. 1 minute, it could be 75 and sunny, and 10 minutes later, snow. Whatever the weather, you need a pair of socks that'll keep your feet cool and dry even on the hottest of summer days. And if you happen to run into that spring snowstorm, you'll stay nice and toasty warm. Well, your feet anyway. To get you a pair, go to the website, thebuffalowoolco.com. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. These are the finest socks that I've ever put on my feet. Are you one of those people that said something like this before Trump became president?
I have a house in Spain that is going to be ready right after the election. Siberia.
Nova Scotia.
I'm definitely moving to Canada. Straight to hell. Iceland. France.
Asia's pretty cool.
And has the last year and a half been more than you could bear? Well, if it has, you've come to the right place. Call my friend Rebecca Bextel at eXp Realty. She has her fingers on the pulse of the real estate market all across the state of Wyoming. Last year, she sold around $30 million worth of property. Everything from small residential properties all the way up to big giant ranches. So if you've got to get the heck out of Dodge, if you've got to be gone Johnson because you can't stand that Trump is the president, call Rebecca Bextel. Her phone number is 307-699-3519. Let me say that one more time for you in case you missed it. 307-699-3519.
I've never felt the freedom like I do. I feel stronger every day, don't you? Well, I can show you how. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. I've never felt the freedom like I do. I feel stronger every day. I'm only gonna get stronger.
Cowboy State, watch out. Cowboy State Politics Live is continuing to expand. The truth is, my friends, it is hard to gauge how strong this program is becoming. Make sure that you don't miss a minute of Cowboy State Politics Live or the podcast or the Open Range Record. Great article on the Open Range Record right now from our interview yesterday with Mr. Brent Bean. It has become, pretty widely viewed, I think, and I think it was a tremendous announcement. Have you heard anything about that, Ken?
I'm not permitted to say. The overlord has.
The overlord has spoken.
Secrecy.
Yes. By the way, the Freedom Caucus overlord is a very, very, very terrifying 5-foot-ish young lady, and she weighs about 100 pounds soaking wet.
So you got some new ads.
I do, yes, indeed.
You got some new music, but you left that last one on there, Gonna Get Stronger.
Yeah.
It's an okay song. But
stop. It doesn't make me cry in my beer like your music does.
Oh, yeah. That'd be good. It gets stuck in my head, though, and I can't get it out of my head. And that's kind of the same thing as this silly mantra about DC overlords. That is so
just
ridiculous.
Gets stuck. All right. Let's get back to business here. Actually get some work done. So I'm joined now by my pal, Rebecca Bextel. Rebecca, how you doing this morning?
Good morning. I'm trying to come to you from my backyard. Let's see if the chickens cooperate.
Yeah, by the way, Ken has a very exciting neighborhood that he lives in. Rebecca's yard is pretty exciting. Rebecca's dog, Daisy, real sweetheart, but she is gigantic. The dog can stand, like, not even try to get on the table and just kind of put her head over it and eat whatever's on the table.
Yeah, I have met the dog, Jim.
Yeah, Daisy's awesome. All right, Rebecca. So, as I understand it, your fight with Open Records continues. What's going on?
Well, yesterday I filed a lawsuit against the town of Jackson and the Teton County Housing Authority, and we're looking for 3 things. And these are things, David, that they should have coughed it up. There's a reason they're not.
Yeah.
But when they built the $24 million low-income housing scam building at the fairgrounds, there's $4 million in what they're calling other costs that they won't tell us where it went.
I wonder what those other costs are.
Yep. Well, we know that the developers paid themselves $1 million out of that, but we don't know who else got the rest of the $3 million. It's not architectural fees. It's not construction fees. And so we feel like the public deserves to know who else got paid off. For example, our mayor seems to enrich himself every time a project goes up. So I'm curious if he, was a consultant or something like that. And then we also are looking for missing text messages between our housing director. In my public record request, I could see where the developers would say, I texted you the details.
Yeah.
Well, she never. So we are suing for those text messages with all these developers. And then we're also suing over redacted emails. For example, they don't want you to know what the town pays the developers to plow the parking lot that they own. Just stupid stuff like that. Yeah, they don't want you to know what we pay to plow the parking lot. And also someone 3 years after the building was built needed to update and revise the operating agreement. You can see where they just redact the entire thing, who requested the operating agreement to get updated, why it needed to be updated. So they redact these entire emails, but then they forward them to about 7 people that work for the developer. So they get to know, just the public doesn't get to know. So I got that lawsuit filed yesterday. Unfortunately, Melissa Owens is the judge here in Teton County. She's the same
of course.
reason Yeah. So we'll see how that goes, but maybe it'll end up in the Wyoming Supreme Court, or the county and town can just do their job and hand it over.
Well, isn't this, I mean, this is such a much bigger issue than just Jackson or, I mean, for example, I talked to somebody yesterday that all they were doing, and it's actually Dawn, one of the writers for the Open Range Record. The only thing she wanted was the ledger for, I think it was like 3 or 4 years from Lincoln County. Money in, money out. And it's like every government entity should have a ledger. And she was told she would have to pay $10,000 before they would release those. Well, okay, so I guess technically the county says, well, yeah, you can see the records, but we're going to charge you a ridiculous amount of money that, a normal everyday citizen is not going to be able to write a $10,000 check to get those records. And so, public entities, counties, towns, the Wyoming Housing Authority, WCDA, they use loopholes to prevent the public from finding out exactly what they're doing. And I think that that's just wrong.
Well, I almost sued the WCDA over the developer fees because they would not tell us what they're paying with tax dollars all over the state for these projects. And finally, to stay out of court, the attorneys wrote back and said, well, the max we can pay per project is $1 million, and you just need to assume that they've maxed out on every single project. So that was their way of saying they pay themselves $1 million. When you see a building go up low income in Cheyenne or any of wherever, Sheridan, it's $1 million is what they pay. They're not doing it to help the low income people, folks. They're doing it to enrich themselves and to redesign Wyoming. And that's why I'm a dog on a bone on this one. And then the next lawsuit I'm going to file is against Natrona County, the Natrona County assessor. I know there's a lot of your viewers and listeners who fought really hard to get Tammy Salisbury to be the Natrona County assessor. She told me once I disclosed that these Japanese equity firms and East Coast equity firms actually own all these buildings around Natrona County, and they are very much for profit. She told me, she said, they're not going to get any more property tax exemptions. This is costing the Natrona County citizens hundreds of thousands of dollars. I actually can't believe this. In Teton County, they pulled all the exemptions when I showed who owned the buildings. Can you believe it? In Teton County, I said, if you give them an exemption, I'm going to sue you. And the lady knew that I meant business. And so she didn't do it. But at the last second, Tammy, she just got weak. And so I'm looking at filing a lawsuit on behalf of the public to recuperate so you have to pay. If you get cancer, if you get sick, your husband dies, your kid, you pay property tax. But somehow Tammy Salisbury wants to exempt wealthy East Coast investors and literally the Japanese from having to pay. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, no, these housing developments are like everywhere across the state. There's one here in Sheridan, and this is this is a bizarre one. Because I don't know of very many people that have had a dramatic drop in their property taxes. But this property here in Sheridan, their property taxes go down to the tune of I think it was,
it's 40%. It's 40% every year, but it seems to drop. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. And none of these places, and it's this big ruse, right? We're going to put up this housing development. It's going to be great. Low income housing. But it's owned by a firm that's not in Wyoming. It's only operated for, a few years. And this is the real dirty secret with it. Once it becomes dilapidated, then the East Coast equity firm says, you know what, we're going to be so generous to you. We're just going to give this to the town. And nobody is ever told that it's going to cost millions of dollars to renovate this thing. And so it just becomes this giant county albatross. And
well, in the case in Natrona County, I thought that Juniper Ridge was owned by Boston Financial. And what happened was it was so in such disrepair, literally within a year, the exterior of the building was crumbling. Okay. Wow. This was in this building. Blue Line was the developer. They also there's 4 owners at Blue Line, and one of them owns a construction company. Her name is Kelly Gill. So they get paid every way you can get paid on a project. Somehow this building exterior was falling apart. It was such a liability that the owners just handed it back to the Wyoming Housing Network and said the liability is greater than the value of this thing. Wow. Now it's the taxpayers' problem. And what's amazing to me is Blue Line, who messed that one up big time, they recommended our housing authority hire Blue Line for our housing scam. It doesn't make any sense. We hired a developer that was $6 million more than the other guys with taxpayer dollars because the WCDA recommended them. And by the way, he used to work at the WCDA. So it's like every bit of this is such a scam on the people of Wyoming. I'm not letting it go.
So every state seems to have their own version of fraud. In Minnesota, it's the Leering centers. In California, it's the assisted living centers. Is this Wyoming's version of that same type of fraud?
I really think it is. And to think that the director, Brett Fanning, who is the head of the Department of Revenue, I just got a public record request, 117 emails of all these county assessors. He could easily, his job is to find revenue for the state, but he somehow is not enforcing this. He said, maybe we should look into it more. I said, Brett, this is hundreds of thousands of dollars, low-hanging fruit. The owners don't even live here. These aren't constituents, but he won't go after them on purpose. So I hope if Megan or Brent become the governor, we're looking for a new head of the Department of Revenue, because this guy, he's not working, he's not doing his job. He's going after you, the citizen, but not the corporate interests.
Yeah, and that's another issue entirely. Did you know, Rebecca, at the Department of Revenue, they have about 100 people that audit money coming in. So making sure that everybody's paying their bill and we're getting every single red cent that we can. But the number of people that are auditing money going out, which is, I forgive me if I'm a little, looking at this, from a lower level, but it seems to me that an audit is supposed to find out about money going out. There's only 6 of those people. So 100 auditing money coming in, 6 people auditing how we spend it. I mean, it's entirely backwards. So, Rebecca, I mean, obviously you're dealing with 2 issues here. One is the so-called affordable housing, but the second is access to public records. Let's take the second one first. What needs to be done to fix our Public Records Act?
Well, the Wyoming Supreme Court ruled that public records should act as a fishbowl where anyone in the public can easily look in. It shouldn't be all these games where you're jerked around. And a lot of people here in Teton County ask me, why am I still beating the drum on this project when so our county and town bought a $28 million piece of land. They didn't have the money, so they had to put out bonds. I've got some guys looking into that. But basically, they had an RFP with 6 people that said, here's what we would do, here's what we would charge for the low-income housing or workforce or affordable housing. Amazingly, they end up saying, okay, now it's between you 2 companies. And then they awarded this guy the project where everyone else said, you cannot build housing for that cheap. It's not humanly possible. And a year and a half later, the guy who was awarded the project, guess how much his housing cost? As much as the other guys who were not selected. They've just creeped it up. You'll sit in meetings and they'll say, how much money, developer, are you going to make on this project? And they'll say, we're not going to tell you that. But we need $10 million more dollars to make this work. That's literally happened at both meetings. And so I'm kind of sending a shot across the bow, and I'm saying, look, people are paying attention now. They've gotten away with this for so long. I know people that will public record request, even our own town council will ask the housing authority for information, and the developer writes the email back. So imagine that. Not the housing authority, not the person working for the county and the town, the developers who are in an RFP they're the ones answering the emails for the county, and they won't release basic information. I'm not going to let that one go either. I have a feeling, I don't know if anybody's kept up with what's happening in, I think it's Glen Rock, but the same attorney who filed this for me, who I hired, also had a big public records case in Glen Rock, and he found 200 no bid contracts just going to the mayor's friends. There's a lot of money on the table in these projects. And you have to pay attention, or they'll do whatever the hell they want.
Well, I think this is a result of, and I'm just going to put it really simply, like the good old boys running the state for decades. And it's, I'm from Johnson County, man. There's a reason why I refer to that as Hazard County. And, if you want to get elected and keep your job, you get a DUI on the wrong side of the interstate. and you get
I
a
love your coverage of that, by the way.
thanks. You'll
And
get
I love how you happen to be at bodegas or whatever it's called right as she was purchasing wine again.
Yeah, as Christy
Even though she
Haswell.
wasn't allowed to.
Yeah, she tried to give me a hug the other day at Third Thursday. But anyway, so big problems with the open records process. And I think one of those is that our state ombudsman, though she does an amazing job, she doesn't really have any other tools in her toolbox. It's not like she can say, okay, I'm going to charge you with this statute. She doesn't have that authority. And so these big outfits like the WCDA or the Lincoln County, they can refuse an open records request.
Right.
And then unless you sue them, nothing happens. I mean,
That's right. There's no penalties. Give it to me. No, I'm not. Okay, thanks. Or I'm going to sue you. And my husband and I, we tithe, and I consider some of this stuff like, this is money out of my pocket. This is my time. I consider this almost like putting money in an offering plate.
Yeah, sure.
It's bringing about change for the good of the public.
All right, so let's switch gears a little bit. We got a debate coming up, July 16th. I've spoke a little bit about it. Why don't you tell my audience what's going to happen?
We're going to have a governor debate followed by a top 5 congressional debate. I'm going to be sponsoring the sandwiches at halftime at the 30-minute intermission, so people can get something to eat. There's also going to be a bar there, and I think it's going to be a really good time. It's at the Rialto Theater, July 16th. And it's going to be an actual debate. This is not going to be gotcha questions.
Nope.
We're not trying to trap a Republican into saying something stupid for a soundbite. We're actually going to try to get to the bottom of what this person's going to look like if they're in office.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. And we've already got some candidates who've committed to be there. So regardless of whomever says they'll be there, we are going to have a debate. And, the poll that we've been running, of course, we're not releasing the results until the 30th of June, but it's been really interesting to watch how the numbers go up and down. And I will say that some candidates, let me just put it this way, they have some very enthusiastic supporters. And the reason I bring that up is the way it's going to work is only one vote per device. So we've set up the poll to where we're going to weed out, if you voted for yourself 500 times, those aren't going to count. It's fun looking at the results. There'll be a whole string where it's just like one candidate. So anyway, it's going to be fun. And here's what I hope. After we're all done, we've got the bar, we've got the whole place for the evening. So we've got the cash bar, we got a little bit of food. I hope that everybody just hangs out and we can talk politics and I think it's going to be a really fun event. So that's going to be on the 16th in Casper at the Rialto Theater. So it's going to be a blast.
And it's co-sponsored with the Stockmen for Liberty.
Yep. Wyoming Stockmen for Liberty.
Yep. It's going to be awesome. They're going to be some of the moderators and some of the speakers. So I think that's going to be great. Can I also alert your listeners to Speaker Nyman's awesome Facebook videos?
Aren't those great?
Been watching those. My husband the other day said, how many times are you going to watch that video? Okay, it was so good. But to think that a pollster called Chip Nyman himself and told him that Chip is against energy.
Yeah.
Chip, that is so funny. That's how nasty this thing is going to get.
Yeah, and so Chippy's videos, he's done, I talked to him a little bit last night. I sent him a couple text messages, just kind of poking him a little bit. And he says, well, do you really think they're effective? And I said, Chip, they're hilarious, man. I said, I've had so many people call me and be like, dude, you've got to watch Chip's videos. They're great.
It's hilarious. It's genuine. And I also appreciate Ken going after Josh Durrell, or however you say his name. The Wyoming Business Council. It's unbelievable. That's another thing. It's like they just don't tell you stuff. They're just so used to having absolutely no accountability.
Yep.
They don't have to answer anybody. It's like you work for them instead of the other way around. That's what gets me about the housing director here. She works for us. I don't work for her.
Right.
When it's insane.
Well, and this is one of the reasons why I enjoy. A lot of people don't enjoy election season. I do, because I just get a kick out of all the craziness that happens. All right, Rebecca. Well, we're about out of time. I gotta run. But why don't you give my listeners, if they want to get a hold of you, how do they do that?
Call me on my cell, 307-699-3519. And if you're in Natrona County, I'd love to hear from you. You're being violated.
All right, Rebecca, I
Your
appreciate
rights
it.
are being violated. Okay.
All right, we'll talk later.
Thank you.
Bye. All right. Well, that was Rebecca Bextel, co-owner of the Open Range Record. She advertises with Cowboy State Politics, and she's also running for governor in the event that the election doesn't turn out the way that we want. So, anyway, what do you think about the Open Records Act, Ken?
Good luck.
Good luck, he says.
I think part of what strikes me is there is so much money at stake. There are so many backroom deals. There are so much of this stuff going on that, and that's part of the reason this election is going to be so nasty.
Yeah.
Is these people can't afford not only to lose the incomes of the other things that are coming on, but they can't afford to be exposed.
Well,
and they'll do anything to stop it.
Oh yeah, and if you all you got to do is read some of the mailers that show up in your mailbox, and unfortunately, some of these redcoats have figured out that it's probably not a wise idea to send them to my house, and so I don't get all of them. But just read some of the claims that is specifically from Americans for Prosperity. They are by far on the top of the naughty list.
That organization is vile.
Yes. I mean, most of what, and we're going to talk to a guy in just a second who, he had, by my count, I think he had about 80 grand spent against him in the last election. You had, of course, it wasn't AFP, but you had about 100 grand spent against you the first time you won.
Yeah, in the good old days, you could do one of these campaigns for $5,000-$6,000.
Yeah, not anymore.
It's gotten nuts.
Well, like we mentioned, you can't even send out a mailer sometimes for under $4,000. So,
especially mine, because I gotta slip all those illicit funds in there.
Well, yeah,
bribing people to
you have to have clandestine ways for the Freedom Caucus to send you money in there. All right, so we're going to take another break, and when we come back, we're going to be joined by Mr. Mark Jennings. Back in a minute.
Venmo.
Yeah, Venmo, PayPal, carrier pigeon.
Are you sick to death of being told what to think? Maybe you don't even realize that it's happening. Freedom Caucus bad, big spending, big government, liberal, Republican good. Conservatives are bad and they want to starve little children. I have heard it all, my friends. We are way past the time when the news was just the news, if it ever was. But wouldn't it be nice if you had a news platform that was at least honest about what they were telling you? News on the news page, opinion on the opinion page. That's exactly what the Open Range Record is. Go to the website, openrangerecord.com. News, analysis, opinion, and investigative journalism. One more time, that website is openrangerecord.com. You can listen and watch Cowboy State Politics live on YouTube, Facebook, X, and on Rumble every Tuesday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Pay attention to all that other block-headed, Borg-like so-called news if you want. But if you want to get the real story, watch Cowboy State Politics live. And now, back to the program.
That sounds a little bit like crying in your beer music.
I love it. I love it. Every time there's a new tune, Ken snarls about it, especially when there's an electric guitar in it. I don't know. And I mean, he does have to cart around his birth certificate with one of those hand carts. So, I mean,
I do know somebody older though.
well, it's true. There are very, very few. I mean, when you've been in Wyoming as long as you have, I mean, it's just it just stands to reason that you're going to have put up with some of that stuff. Well, anyway, welcome back to the program, Cowboy State Politics Live on a Friday. It's Open Line Friday. If you really want to talk to us, the phone number is 307-374-8989. 307-374-8989. Well, we're joined in the studio by my friend and candidate for House District 30, Mr. Mark Jennings. Mark.
Hey, glad to be here this morning.
Glad to be on again.
Yeah, well, it's been a while.
Too long.
Yeah, so let's run you through the paces a little bit, and then we'll get to some more fun stuff. So you're running for the House of Representatives again. You got out of there. Why are you doing it again?
Well, Tom Kelly, who we all appreciated him being the representative for the last 2 years, he's running for the school superintendent. Hopefully he takes that position. And I still had some unfinished business that I wanted to go back and give it a shot.
Okay, fair enough. So you've got an opponent, and so it's a little bit different for you. Last couple of elections, you didn't have an opponent.
Well, I don't remember those. I only remember one. They always seem to like to find somebody.
All right. So if you're successful, which I have no doubt that you will be, your opponent doesn't seem to know which district is his. But if you're successful, what do you want to do?
Well, I'd like to focus this time on repealers because I think we have too much government and too many green books that just interfere in people's lives. I'd like to work more on the property tax reform.
Okay.
The rebates I voted for, but we really need to change the system. It's not honest with the people. And the third thing that I think that is very important is we really need to put together a spending policy.
Oh boy, big time.
Yeah.
All right, so we started out the program this morning. I don't know if you got to see it, but we started out talking about an op-ed from Liz Storr, and she says the 4% property tax cap is unconstitutional, even after she voted for it multiple times. So talk to me about that. Is it in your opinion unconstitutional? Because you were there when it was passed.
The 4% cap, I do not see how that would be unconstitutional. There's been some proposals out there that I think we're going to find out whether or not they're constitutional. But the 4% cap, I don't really even understand how they're arguing that is unconstitutional.
Well, their argument is a difference in words. So Liz Storr is arguing that it's not equitable, right? That the money is not the same. And so her argument is essentially that if you're a jillionaire and you've got this big giant house, up on the face of the mountain, that a 4% cap on your taxes amounts to more money than it does if your house in town is worth, if it's Ken's house, right, down in a nice neighborhood. That the amount of money that the amount of the reduction isn't equal. That's her argument.
Yeah, but it's 4%. I just don't see how you get from here to there. That just seems like a foolish argument that it's unconstitutional.
So you've run in several elections, Mark. Do you feel like this one is different than some of the previous elections, or is it the same? Do you notice a difference? Talk to me.
Well, what Ken said earlier is, my first election, 2014, I think we spent around 7, and we were going up against an incumbent with 7. And when I ran for Senate, I think there was question marks of over the 100,000 by my opponent, and I spent 34, something like that. So yeah, it has become a much more polarized, and with that, much more money involved.
Well, Mark, you're a historian. So is this election, is our current environment, I guess, I don't know, it's kind of awkward, but is our current environment any more polarized than it was, in the past?
Yeah, I think so. I think that the conservatives shedding the light on how we've done business for the last few decades, and the backroom deals and the things that are being perpetrated, forced charity on the public. I think that's coming more and more to light, and the opposition, the people that are in favor of that, are becoming very vitriol about it and very very vicious in their standing against conservative or true Republican values. And they're making it very plain that they do not intend to allow that light to take away that light that's being shined on their, what I call, questionable behavior, especially in light of the Constitution.
Right.
They're not going to just walk that back and say, "Oh, I guess we made a mistake." They're literally coming after any conservatives or true Republicans.
Well, the way that I've described it, and you can correct me if you think that I'm off base on this, but I view this kind of like the Empire Strikes Back. So last election, I think the conservatives kind of caught the other side on their heels. I mean, we had the Wyoming caucus, and they were raising their own money, and they had all sorts of consultants, and they ran a pretty broad campaign statewide, and there were some pretty nasty campaigns.
Yeah.
But I don't think that they really thought that conservatives would take over the House.
Yeah.
I just don't think that they even saw that as possible. Well, it happened, and now this time around, they're fully aware of what happened, and it's they're trying everything they can to make sure that it doesn't happen again.
I told my kids this, and they're all grown and adults now and a ways into life, that there'll come a day when the liberal ideology, we would take it at the national level, we would say a Republican president would win, and they had to take a step back. And then when they got a liberal president in place, they would take 3 steps forward, and then another Republican. And I said, there'll come a day where they will not be willing to take 1 step back, and they're going to fight. And I think we're on that day. They now see that this is basically an open war in the arena of ideas, and if they lose this, if we shine enough light out there and enough people become informed, their ideas do not stand up in the public arena.
No, they don't. They never work.
Yeah, no, they're socialist.
Well, actually, I need to back up on that, because socialism works if you have other people's money to spend.
Right.
But that's what they're arguing for. I mean, we talked about the Sunbucks a little bit from the not so common sense, not so Republicans, and they're saying how great of a program that was. Well, really, all it is taking tax dollars and moving it around.
Yeah.
And Ken, I think you hit the nail on the head a little bit ago, that there are a large number of people that make a tremendous amount of money with the system the way that they had it set up, and they got a pretty good picture of what things are going to look like if conservatives are in charge, i.e., they're not going to be making that big pile of money.
I think there's and don't take this wrong for your viewership. We love charities. That is some of the best of society, is that people. But what we don't like is forced charity. And I mean, in my district, the guy I'm running against is for the 2 meals for a senior citizen district. I like seniors. I are one. But I don't think that we get to just take that from people that own homes. Take that out. I mean, it's forced charity. We're going to force you where we're going to spend this money.
Well, and in that case, I think that one's particularly egregious, because in the housing center or the senior center here in Sheridan, it's called the Hub on Smith. They get a tremendous amount of money in private donations. I mean, they're pulling in some serious cash, and we pay for their transportation, and we pay for the fuel to go along with it. So they're already getting a giant chunk of money, and now it's going to be on the ballot whether or not they get 2 mills, which, like you said, I mean, that's, and here's my objection to that. Why should I have to pay for something that I'm not using?
Well, it's not only, I would agree with that. That's, again, it's forced charity. But it does something else also. It's picking winners and losers.
Big time.
When you're putting money into one entity, there are entities out there that are trying to make a living in or Uber or taxi service and things of that nature. We don't subsidize them.
No.
How do we get to subsidize this select group of people?
Well, and I think you used the gentle word of subsidizing, but really what Mark's referring to is, why should the guy that is running a private business as a taxi service have to compete with government? Why is it that his competition has an unlimited checkbook and he has to figure out how he's going to make payroll month in and month out? I mean, that's the question right
They
there.
also steal his money to pay for that.
Yeah.
Against him.
So I've used this argument before. Why am I paying for schools?
Yeah.
We educated our children ourselves on our own dime, and we don't have any kids left in school. None of my grandkids, well, there are some grandkids in school now in a different area, but that argument is always answered with, well, it's for the betterment of society. So they use that same argument with the seniors. This makes a better society when we all share.
Yeah.
Socialism, communism is godless Christianity. It's a godless copy of Christianity without the one thing that makes Christianity work, which is God.
Well, yes.
So it can't work.
And without actual benevolence. When you enact government policies, like the 2 mills, or any of them really, your tool of choice is a mallet. It's a hammer. And so where I say the benevolence doesn't exist in that system is that you have to force people to give up their money so that you can pay for whatever project you want. And whether it's a senior center or a golf course or whatever, it doesn't matter.
We're saying exactly the same thing.
Yes, we are.
Because God is love, and that's the benevolence, and you take that out of it.
It actually creates something that's the opposite. It actually creates dependency, is what they're attempting to do, because dependency allows control.
Absolutely, it does. All right. So one of the other reasons I wanted to have you on the show is a policy agenda that Brent Bean put out yesterday, and essentially, and Ken, if you'll put up the article on the Open Range Record for me, maybe. No, that's Mark. There it is. Okay. So in his statement,
Don't get
Brent
smart
Bean,
with me. I know the difference.
all right. So in his statement, and I'll just read part of it to you. Bean says, in 2020, the door was opened to the woke greening of Wyoming with the passing of into law of House Bill 200, and that was in 2020. And the bill title was Reliable and Dispatchable Low Carbon Energy Standards. The bill was passed with many of the same people who are now giving lip service to the energy production industries in our state of unleashing or releasing Wyoming energy. Elected officials chanting the same allegiance to our energy producers have voted in committees, subsequent bills in the legislature, on boards, such as the State Lands and Investment Board, to advance the woke green agenda. All of this has been done while allowing this law to cripple our legacy producers. And so the very first thing he's going to do is to demand the repeal of House Bill 200 from 2020. Now, that passed, and that was right before I started Cowboy state politics. And so I only got to see the aftermath of this bill. But Mark, if you could you talk about how what this bill is, how they got it passed, what the fight was like? Give us a story.
Well, it was it really, in my opinion, it started out. And that green stuff, the woke stuff, it's a scam. And so that's how I viewed it. That was the lens which I viewed it through, was that this was a scam. And should we be good stewards? Yes. But this was in the Obama-Biden era of feel good, let's turn everything green, we must shut down all coal-fired plants. And in Wyoming, they knew that there would be a battle over that. And some of us stuck to our guns, obviously not enough. And so I believe that was brought by Representative Zwanitzer, I think, when I looked at that.
Maybe I didn't look.
Yeah.
Okay, Ken says
And,
that was the sponsor.
Everyone knew that Representative Zwanitzer was on board for, I mean, he literally shouldn't have had an R in front of his name.
No.
But he did. And so it was presented that this is the way that it's going. And even coal producers, it was interesting to me that right in that time frame, they came to a number of the conservatives. We met with them, and I remember it distinctly. They said, if you're going to fight for our coal industry, we'd rather you didn't tie yourself to us. And I always thought that was interesting that they had them convinced that, kind of like orange hair guy, always bad. It was burning coal is going to be always bad. Well, we've cleaned up the coal emissions tremendously, and so I looked at this as another one of their scams to shift huge amounts of money out of the energy sector and out of the people's wallets, and I think that is exactly what they've done with it.
And I the conversation afterwards, and of course this was in the 2020 session. I started Cowboy state politics in December of that year, so in 2021 that was the first session that I was really paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
And there, I distinctly remember conversations about this bill, and it was, well, and you alluded to it, this is the way things are going. And so if we're going to go in this direction, we got to do it the Wyoming way.
Yeah.
And this is how we're going to do it. But the result was they forced carbon capture technology onto our power plants. And it was members of our legislature that did it.
Yeah. Well, even our governor, one of his opening statements for the legislature said net zero.
Yes.
Or minus, I think.
Well, when he went to Harvard, that's when he said, "Oh, we're really proud as a state. We've decided we're going to be net negative," which is a bizarre comment anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, so one more thing, and then I want to get to your idea. So let's not forget who the people were that voted for this thing. And Ken, if you could put my screen up there. So some of the people that voted for this are still in the legislature, and one of them is running for governor. And the very first one listed is Eric Barlow. I mean, he's number one on the list, but there are others. Ogden Driscoll is on the list. Dockstader, Giroux, R.J. Cost, he's running again. Bill Slithers, Nethercott, Wendy Schuler, and the rest of them are gone. But there are lots of other people in this thing that voted for it. Let's just go through the list here. Let's see here. A lot of these people aren't in the legislature anymore, but Harshman's not. Let's hear, but Lloyd Larson is, Bob Nicholas, Art Washit, and I mean, there's a whole bunch of these people.
Yeah.
And so, Mark, what do you want to do about this?
Well, like my very first statement is that we need to be working on repealers. We've passed bad laws to the tune of 400 to 600 new laws each session. That's just ridiculous, especially in a state that's supposed to value freedom. So we need to go back and things that are harmful, and like this. And so this is on my list of ones that I would run a repealer. Chris Knapp had run one for it, and they killed it in Senate Minerals, I believe. And I intend to run that if I get reelected, to run or work with Representative Knapp, because his is very good. They just killed it in committee before it got anywhere, and I think especially if we have a governor that's on board with our actual energy sector, let's get rid of this kind of nonsense. This is harmful. It's harmful to the taxpayers. You pay utilities that just foolishly are going into this green woke ideology that ruled the day for Obama, and well, even the Biden, even though he might not have known he was there.
I'm pretty sure he didn't. But this one in particular, I find most offensive, because just about everybody that is running for office uses the word unleash Wyoming energy,
We're going to have energy dominance. And it's coming from the exact same people that passed this thing or that made sure that that repealer, Chris Knapp's repealer, didn't make it out of the Senate.
Yeah.
Guess who was president of the Senate when that happened? That was Dennis Bo Beitman.
Yeah.
I mean, he's the one that assigns the bills. He's the one that assigns the chairman. And so, you know, all of these people need to be held accountable. And frankly, I think if you're running for office and you're not on board with this, Wyoming citizens should just send you home packing.
Yeah.
Because this is harmful to Wyoming the coal industry.
It has cost us all a lot of money, and it's cost the industry. And it's a foolish thing. I mean, I don't know. We all like to breathe, and plants like carbon.
Yeah, exactly right. All right, so I think that's tremendous. So you're going to file that thing the first day you can do it?
I probably will, if I make it through the primary, I probably will already have someone file it so that it's ready to go, and then you can do a thing with the LSO. You can transfer it to the prime sponsor. So, yeah, it will actually already be ready to go day one.
Excellent. Well, so what other things? I know you said that you're focused on repealers. You got some others in mind?
I do have a couple of others in mind, and actually a number of them. I was thinking about education and where the battle is in that, and I was thinking about some of the things that Representative Harshman had done.
Oh, Lord.
He was very big on education.
Big on spending.
And I was thinking about him. I remember back in the argument of the 3-year rolling average. Our schools and stuff, they loved it because they get to double dip.
Okay, explain what that is.
If you have a student, let's say here in Sheridan, that's in school district 2, and say you move and you want to go to school district 1, and your child has transferred, school district 2 still gets the average just as if that child was sitting in there at year number 1. They get that for 3 years. It diminishes some each year, I believe. And then at the same time, we're paying for him to be sitting in school district 1. So we didn't actually, we didn't transfer. What we did was we upped. They double dipped.
Taught by ghost teachers that don't exist. That
Yeah.
we're paying for.
Well, no, we got rid of all
Yeah,
of
we did.
those
We
at
did.
least twice in my time.
We did.
Yeah.
And I always found that humorous because, this is all of the ghost positions in government. You will never see this bill again the next year. Oh, well, we found 500 more. And so anyway, I'd like to put a repealer on things like that. There was also one on their national education certification, which I guess I'm okay with them getting a little bit for that, but originally that thing was put in perpetuity. They always got that from then on. And I still remember there was a repealer run on that, and we actually won it, and the very next day he basically withdrew it.
Oh.
They had gotten to him on it. So I ran into one interestingly just in the last few months. We watched a car sales prohibition where somebody helped someone else out to sell. And then he was hit with trying to be a dealer. And that was never what that...
well, let's just hold that thought. So what Mark is referring to, and you have seen this, God, I don't know how many times I've seen this, but the post usually comes up with, hey, I'm not really selling this, but I'm posting this for my friend who's bad at Facebook. And so I'm posting his car for sale. And, here's the phone number, here's all. Well, that is essentially what this guy did, is he just posted a vehicle for sale, and then he gets prosecuted for it as if he's impersonating a dealer. Which that never happened.
It's never happened before. I did a little bit of research on this. Never happened before in the state. I tried to get some answers to help out on this. But this is a classic slap lawsuit.
Yes.
Where they're coming around just to try to get somebody to shut up. Mm-hmm. And because he is outspoken, because he does play a role that they don't like, they were going to do whatever they could to harm him.
Yeah.
for no reason.
You know,
It's
they were
ridiculous.
partially successful.
Yeah, a little bit, but I think in the end it comes back. And so I think the first thing to do is come on. When this was written, it was basically proposed by the big car dealers, and they didn't want competition. Well, today we have Facebook.
Yeah.
It is. You're not putting that genie back, and so it needs to be repealed. This kind of thing, this nonsense where they did a political hit job on this person by using a misinterpretation of what the law was ever intended for. And so I'd like to see things like that repealed. Governor's tags and
this is a good
commissioner's tags. I actually drew a moose tag this year.
Congratulations.
Have to wait 5 years to go again, in which case
I put in for a commissioner's tag.
Did you? All that takes is a little extra money.
They said the season is closed and you can't bait them with alcohol.
Yeah. They get a special exemption there. You can go if you got the money to buy one of those from one of our good charitable people. You get to continue buying next year. If you want to outbid the next guy, you can have it again. The rest of us are put on if you get a bull moose or a sheep, you never get to go again.
Yeah.
And I call it the king's deer law. And I just think that they ought to play it. Whoever pays for it, okay, they can do it again next year unless they're the one that hunts. And whoever hunts gets to play by the same rules that the rest of us get to play by.
So what you're proposing then is that sure you can go ahead and buy one of these, but it's the same rules as everybody else that's in the draw. So you pull a sheep tag, okay, yeah, you can buy it, but then you don't get a sheep tag the next year or ever.
But I am saying that whoever buys it, so if you have a wealthy donor that's trying to help out, they can do that. But if say they give it to their son or their wife or their daughter, whoever hunts plays by the exact same rules the rest of us do. They never get to go again, in Wyoming. It's the king's deer, and we just should not tolerate that in a state that loves freedom.
Well, and what I like about that idea is you're not doing away with the idea of a governor's tag. Because in all fairness, sometimes those raise a tremendous amount of money for different charities. And usually what happens is, the governor gives one of these tags to his favorite charity, and he says, okay, auction it off.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's good.
Yeah.
It
helps habitat, usually, as they're helping for that animal.
But I like the idea that everybody has to play by the same rules. And that's one of my big arguments, that we live in a state where some people play by different rules than others. So you got anything else on mind, or is that pretty much
I'm working
the list?
on some more of them. But
okay.
And like I said, my main thing would be to run repealers. I'll probably work on property tax would be my first thing. Repealers probably second, and spending policy right in there with property tax.
Well, and you've always been the legislator that if there's a weird little problem that shows up that's just not right, like you're the guy that files the bill and says, all right, so this situation is stupid.
Yeah.
Let's fix it. So I appreciate that. But so Mark, what do you make of some of the other races that are happening in the state? And we've got 10 people running for Congress. We've got a governor's race that's pretty interesting. What do you make of those?
Well, it's interesting to see how much vitriol there is, again, from the left-leaning ideologues, and they seem to have no limit on how nasty they will become. It'll be interesting, I think, to see. I think Brent Bean is doing very well with the grassroots, and I've actually heard of polling where he's actually in the lead at this point, and very happy to hear that. I think that'll be an interesting one because Megan's Trump endorsement, it'll be interesting to see what they think that will carry, how much that'll carry.
With that one, I mean, Megan Degenfelder beat the guy that had a Trump endorsement. Now, granted, it wasn't Trump 2026. It was it was Trump 2022. So maybe that's a difference. But I don't think in Wyoming's kind of a weird place that sometimes just because you got a name attached to you, that doesn't necessarily mean that you win.
No, that's correct. Harriet got an endorsement, but she worked
her tail off for it.
Yeah, and then she has proof in the pudding. She's fought for us, and she's done a very good voting record. Megan has spent some time in the governor's or the SLIB board voting that not so good. And while I appreciate that maybe she's changed her mind about some of that, it's interesting to see how much the grassroots is saying we're ready for a change.
Well, and I think you can attribute a lot of that to the proliferation of media in general. I'm not talking about like the cow pie or the Pravda. I'm just saying, individual people that have taken it upon themselves to report on all these different things. They go searching out for something that interests them, and then it's, oh, look what I found. We've got a couple of those folks working for the Open Range Record, or writing for us, rather. I guess that's working. And the same thing happened there. They stumbled upon something, and they said, this is wrong. And then, they put it out there, and it's opened a lot of people's eyes.
Well, this is not a paid endorsement, but I think that the Open Range and I think your show has probably more to do with that. The only real media that actually reports honestly.
Well, flattery will get you everywhere with me, Jennings.
I'm not, like I said, it's not a paid endorsement, but I think that has changed the direction of this. It has encouraged those people like who you're talking about that go out there, the grassroots, to actually expose. Listen, I was in the legislature with Eric Barlow for 10 years, and I don't, he put an R in front of his name because he wanted to be able to win races. And I find that distasteful. And I think now that the light's being shown on that type of behavior, it's just like we were talking earlier. As that light is shown on them, they do not like that.
Well, so one good example of that is we published our article, I think it's called Born in a Barn, and it was about the Powder River Basin Resource Council and the Wyoming Outdoor Resource Coalition or whatever. But those radical environmentalist groups that Eric Barlow helped get going, was a part of. He hooked up with Earth Justice to sue the state of Wyoming over coal bed methane. By the way, Earth Justice, same people that are suing Trump all the time. Same individuals. And Eric Barlow hooked up with them. So we published this article, and about a week later, he issues a statement. So think about that.
Yeah.
Eric Barlow's been a politician in Wyoming. He's been in the legislature for 15 years. And he's running for governor. And a little upstart media outlet publishes an article that forces him to issue a statement. Now, he lied in his statement, too, and we've since proven that. But just think about that.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't the cow pie. It wasn't the Pravda. It wasn't any of these big media outlets. It was a little one that said, hey, dude, you're lying.
I don't count them media. I count them as propagandists, to be honest with you, because, one, I've been their target many times.
Numerous times.
And listen, if I'm doing something wrong, I want you to call me out on it. I want to be transparent in front of the people that put me in House District 30. And they don't have that level of integrity that I can see. I mean, I've watched it unfold time and time again. They have a propagandist ideology of destroying conservatism and supporting liberal ideology.
That we do. That they do. So we've got just a couple of minutes left. If my viewers want to get a hold of you, Mark, how do they do that?
Well, my lovely wife of 46 years.
Put up with you for that long, huh?
She has.
Wow.
You want me to just hold this up, or you want me to read it?
No, tell us how we get a hold of you.
The website is Mark Jennings, HouseDistrict30.com. The email is markjenningshousedistrict30@yahoo.com. And the phone number is 307-285-6552.
So is House District spelled out, or is it HD?
HD30.
Okay, so go ahead and tell us those addresses one more time.
Website is markjenningshd30.com. Email is markjenningshd30@yahoo.com. And the phone number is HD30 at 307-285-6552.
All right, Mark.
I have to say this before we check out of here. I love the hat.
Yeah.
If you can't read it on the screen, it says it's a red hat. Get over it.
A very good friend gave that to me, and once I straightened up from laughing, because people are so polarized and it's just so crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, it is. It's a red hat. If you got a problem with that, I actually have the first hat that Donald Trump threw out in Wyoming.
Yeah, he was sitting not that far from me at the Trump rally.
Yeah, I saw the whole family on TV.
Yeah, here comes the hat, and I'm like, dang it, he didn't throw it anywhere near me. All right, my friends. Well, that'll do it for another busy week on the program. We've got another busy week next week. Tuesday, we're starting out with, I believe, it's Speaker Chip Nyman. So lots to do next week. Have a great weekend. From the base of the Bighorns at the Cowboy State Politics Studio, I'm David Iverson, and this is Cowboy State Politics. Have a good weekend, my friends.